Let's make some DFS lineups for the AFC and NFC championship games. Holy cow, they're here. We'll talk about it right now on FFT Express. All right, it's Broncos and Patriots, and it's Rams and Seahawks, part 3. So Patriots are 4.5-point favorites on the road as of Thursday afternoon. Total in that game is 42.5. The Rams and Seahawks are 2.5-point favorites. Total is 47. That game's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Hey, Dave.
Adam, I think there are going to be two things that you will see consistent with DFS lineups this week. Number one, Puka Nacua and Jackson Smith and Jigba in lineups, working together, tandem, 2 stud number 1 wide receivers. You can go in a lot of different directions if you have those two in a lineup. You can go cheap at running back and get a good quarterback with those 2 wide receivers, or you can go expensive at running back, cheap at quarterback, and still stick with those 2 wide receivers. The other thing I think you'll see is if J.K. Dobbins is cleared, if he comes off IR, ready to go, his price is so low on both FanDuel and DraftKings that you'll see him get into lineups because people will see the cheap price tag. They'll remember how good he was at the beginning of the year, and they will slide him into lineups. So the more you can do to get away from that and differentiate, the better. But even with that being said, I don't know how you get away from using at least one of Nacua and JSN. Every lineup that I've made so far, I've made 3. They all have Puka and JSN in them. So if you want to try and be different, you try and build something without them in there. You're going to have enough money left over to use one of them anyway if you do that. So maybe pick one of those 2 and move forward with your lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I have a FanDuel lineup that does not have Jackson Smith and Jigba. It does have Puka Nacua, but it doesn't have Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah.
So just to not repeat the same thing we just did on the main show, I didn't ask anyone about Davante Adams because obviously a great season, always a must-start wide receiver, certainly a way to save money. Not that he's cheap, but Puka on FanDuel's $9,800, JSN's $9,400, Davante's $8,000. You have any interest in him?
No, because I'm worried about how much upside he'll have. This is a great Seattle defense. They've got a great pass rush. They play a lot of zone. We know that Davante Adams is much more of like a touchdown needy fantasy wide receiver. And he had a high target per route run rate when he played against Seattle the one time he was available to the Rams against Seattle. He's the guy that I think is really easy to pivot away from too, especially since when I've watched the last 2 playoff games, he's been covered pretty easily. He's not getting open like he used to. He still has some good speed, but he's not getting open the same way that he used to even earlier this year. So remember the injury that he suffered? He didn't play in week 16 against Seattle. Yeah, I think there's still some lingering effects on that for somebody who's, 32, 33 years old, however old he is.
Yeah, and the first time he played against them, he had 1 catch for 1 yard and a touchdown on 8 targets.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle, here are the wide receivers who have more than 66 yards against Seattle this year. Ricky Pearsall, Emeka Egbuka, Jalen Noel, Puka Nacua twice, Brian Thomas Jr. That's it. They've been unbelievable. They've also been great against the run. Do you like Kyren Williams? Kyren Williams has pretty much run well on just about everyone, including Seattle.
It's true. I don't think he's worth the squeeze. 6,500 makes him the most expensive running back on DraftKings.
Yeah,
I'd rather go cheaper, knowing that Seattle's run defense, this is their past 4 games, 3.3 yards per carry allowed, 1 rushing touchdown line. It was a goal line job to Blake Corum. 0 explosive runs allowed. 0%, none, not a zip, zilch. This is a really good run defense. I don't want to overspend on Kyren Williams, and I don't feel great about Blake Corum either.
But we're fine spending on Ken Walker. Makes sense. He's got a great opportunity.
I think you have to, especially since he's going to have, you just said it, the great opportunity. I'm not sure who that second running back will be in Seattle, and I don't even know if it'll really matter. But I think Ken Walker is just one of those guys, like so volatile. He could go out there and have 3 touchdowns. He could have 12 carries for 45 yards and 1 catch for 10 yards. But you got to take the chance on him, given just the situation that Seattle's in right now. And the matchup isn't horrible.
So who do you like in the Denver-New England game?
One of the guys I actually one of the guys I like a lot is Stephon Diggs, who has a very high target per route run rate against man coverage this year. It's 24.5%, 9.6 yards per target, a 20.6 explosive run rate. He will play in the slot a decent amount, so I don't think he's going to get surtanned. I kind of like Diggs, not only for that reason, but also because when Drake May, when he does have time to throw, and when I say time, I'm talking 3 seconds or less. Usually when a quarterback is getting hurried up, we're talking about under 2.5 seconds. So that little extra half a second might make a difference. He's the number one target per route run rate guy there too. So I could see volume going his way. I've put him into a bunch of my lineups. I like Ramondre Stevenson a lot as well. I think Denver's run defense is kind of taking a step back. We saw that with Buffalo and what they did with James Cook. Ramondre Stevenson's been playing well. He's been playing more than Travion Henderson, been making plays through the air, so you're going to get points for the catches. I like him quite a bit too. And I don't know if there's really anybody else that I love from Denver or from New England, but those two guys are guys that I'm certainly interested in getting in my lineup. And I think there'll be big reasons why the Patriots beat Denver.
Okay. Let's take a quick break and we'll give you some lineups when we come back on Fantasy Football Today Express. We're back. All right. I've got a Rams stack on DraftKings and a Patriots stack on FanDuel. But would you like to share any lineups?
I've got kind of the same type of lineup for both FanDuel and DraftKings. So let me read this one off to you, and you can tell me what you think. It's a Seahawks stack. So Darnold's the quarterback, which is scary for obvious reasons, but I'm trying to not use Drake May and Matthew Stafford because I think a lot of people will use one of those two. Ramondre Stevenson, Ken Walker. I think those guys are going to be very popular. Puka, JSN, we already talked about that. I don't think Diggs will be very popular because he's fairly expensive at $5,800 on DK, but I like him. I'm going to put him in my lineup. I used AJ Barner, and we had a conversation on the main show on Thursday about tight end values and how they were all kind of A, expensive, and B, not great. If I'm stacking the Seahawks, I think Barner's the number 2 target getter, and at 4,000, I'll deal with it there. I had to go cheap at flex with Ferguson, and I ran out of money, so I had to use the Rams defense, which is not ideal if I'm stacking all these Seahawks. So maybe you make a pivot away. Maybe the solution is to pivot away from Puka or JSN. If you're going with the Seahawks stack, it would be Puka you would pivot away from, and then you can go and spend a little bit more at other positions, including defense, and you won't have to use the Rams defense.
Okay. My DraftKings lineup does have a lot in common with yours. It has not that much, actually. Ken Walker, Ramondre Stevenson are the running backs. Puka Nacua and Stephon Diggs are 2 of the wide receivers. I'm going to go with Davante Adams. That's a guy that almost feels contrarian to me. He hasn't done well lately. You just laid out the reasons. He's got a really tough matchup. But let's see if he comes through. If Seattle can put up some points, then Matthew Stafford, because Stafford's my quarterback, then I've got Stafford, Puka, and Davante Adams. And I have Colby Parkinson. So I have Stafford, Ken Walker, Stevenson, Puka, Diggs, Adams, Parkinson, Demario Douglas, and the Patriots DST. Yeah.
You want to hear one more lineup?
Yeah.
The Jarrett Stidham challenge lineup.
Okay.
I'm going to give this to you without necessarily making a stack for Stidham because I don't know who's going to play yet between Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant. I would like to use one of those two guys. I think Bryant would be the one I'd prefer, but one of those two guys I can use as a replacement for the other receivers I'll talk about. So similarities, running backs are Walker and Ramondre, receivers, Puka, JSN, Stidham is the quarterback. At wide receiver, I have Kayshon Boutte, and at flex, I have Cooper Kupp. Both of them are right around the same price as Troy Franklin and or Pat Bryant. If Bryant is cleared from the concussion protocol, I'll take Kupp out of there and I'll put in Pat Bryant to go along with Boutte. Barner's the tight end. And because I've got Stidham, I've got the Broncos defense in there too. And the one guy that I didn't put in that I might pivot to as well, and again, this is moving parts types of thing. If J.K. Dobbins isn't activated, I kind of like RJ Harvey at the price only on DraftKings because it's full PPR, because I think he'll get a lot of check down targets from Jarrett Stidham. You go back and you look at how Jarrett Stidham played and how he distributed the football in his 4 starts over 2 years. It was in 2022 and 2023, but those running backs had nearly a 30% target share from Jarrett Stidham. So if that's a tendency that he has, I know I said that I don't love RJ Harvey. I certainly don't like the matchup for him. And I know he's not going to get a lot of carries because I think Denver just is kind of done with their run game unless Dobbins plays. I think RJ Harvey would be a decent option in full PPR. And not to mention a contrarian play, given the situation, the quarterback, if there is no Dobbins, et cetera.
Thank you, Dave. If you want more DFS advice, just listen to the second half of the show we recorded on Thursday. There's plenty there. For Dave Richard, I'm Adam Aizer. Thanks for watching and listening to FFT Express.